Hey guys, Graham and Chris here from Out of Left Field. Another busy week of baseball. We are into September. The waiver period has ended, and some things that we did not think were going to happen happened at the last possible second. So let's put the ball in play on a very, very busy show. Give you a quick rundown of the standings because there is much more important things happening right now than just where the standings sit. Pretty much chalk in both leagues from this point on. We've pretty much figured out what our top six teams are going to be, and in some cases, at least probably our first wild card team. The Red Sox, Indians, and Astros sit atop the American League with the Nationals, Cubs, and Dodgers sitting atop the respective divisions in the National League. Now, that does not mean that there isn't still some drama going to be happening in both these leagues, Chris. The Indians right now are 80-56, putting them really just 3 games, 3 wins and 3 losses to the Astros. So, 3 straight games behind having at least a tie for the best record in the American League, 4 games away from having the best record in the AL, which could obviously change the entire complexion of the postseason based on where these guys are going to end up. And, of course, now with a home field advantage in the World Series being based off of the end-of-season record, that's a big deal for the Indians, especially going against the Astros, who we know made a big acquisition, which we're going to get into here in just a couple of minutes on the show.
Yeah, no doubt. There's still going to be some drama in these two leagues, but I think more so realistically in the National League than in the American League, and really even for both of those leagues, just in the Central, where you have the National League Central, where you have Milwaukee at 3.5 games back of the Cubs. That's the only team right now in the divisional races that really looks like it has a chance to catch up to the division leader. The Yankees are 4.5 games back with the way the Yankees are playing right now, which we'll get into later. A lot of frustration in New York right now. So I don't think the Yankees are probably really in that divisional race as much as it looks like they are. But what's really interesting to me is how this American League wild card race looks, because for a few weeks now we've been talking about how close this race is, but coming down to the wire in the last month of the season, now we're going into the 40-man roster, extended rosters in September. You still got 6 teams that are within 3.5 games of this wild card. I mean, that's the race to watch, in my opinion, at this point.
Well, definitely. I mean, and I'll throw in there the Brewers as well, just because, yes, they are 3.5 games out of the division. But with the way the Rockies have been playing, and a pretty significant slide right there, which makes you wonder, are the bats starting to slow down? Is that altitude starting to hurt them as much as it does help the Rockies in Denver? The Brew Crew are only a half game out of the second wild card slot as well. So they're sniffing at both ends of the playoffs, either from the divisional side or the wild card side.
Yeah, and, unfortunately for St. Louis is finally winning some games. They're 5-5 in their last 10 now. They finally were able to put a win together against the Giants today. But, again, it was against the Giants. So beating the worst team in the league or beating the worst team in the division doesn't help you, especially not in the wild card.
And I'll go ahead and say this because I know that it's been a rough season for the Giants, but Madison Bumgarner hit another home run today. Was it his 4th straight season of 3 or more home runs? Is that what I saw? That you sent me a statistic that was, it seems kind of odd this is such a big deal, but for a pitcher, a guy who's only going out there every 5 days, and for a guy who was out, obviously a good chunk of the year, and granted he hit 2 of those dingers opening day, but I mean, Bumgarner's a guy who, he makes you have to be concerned when he steps into the box as much as when he's on the bump.
He's the first pitcher since Earl Wilson from 1964 to 68 to have 3+ home runs in 4 straight seasons. That was career home run number 17 for Madison Bumgarner today.
And you and I remember when Wilson did that, and I mean it was just a great feat. No, just crickets. We don't remember the 60s.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay.
If you remember the 60s, you weren't there, man.
Out-of-body experience, I guess. But, yeah, man, it really is, though. It's been an odd year where, there was a lot of really tight races, and the separation. The odd thing to me, and I'm not going to harp on this. We'll have plenty of time for this once the season ends and we're focusing on playoff baseball. But the odd thing to me was just how we went from so many tight races where the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Rays were so tightly grouped together, and now the Rays are 10 games back. They're in fourth place in the East. The Orioles are a game and a half out of the wild card, while the Rays, who were, to a point, buyers grabbing Hechavarria from the Marlins, are now 4 games out of the wild card, and they're 2 games below 500. So, it's just been an odd, just one of those really weird seasons where everything was tight. Now it's really wide, but there's still some excitement with certain parts of the game. And it's why that second wild card has been so instrumental to me in keeping the drama alive in baseball.
It's been a rough go this second half for a lot of teams. We come back from the wild card break, or from the All-Star break, and it seems like all those gaps just started widening, and those teams that you thought might be hangers-on really started falling by the wayside. But teams like Baltimore is not one of those teams that I expected to fall off as much as it did. Now, we know they have their own issues. We know they have their own problems. But, when you got guys like Machado and the strong staff that they have, especially that strong relieving staff that they have, it's kind of mind-boggling that they've fallen as much as they have. I expect to see Baltimore push towards the end of the season here to try to make up that game and a half on Minnesota. I don't know that Minnesota is going to hold on to that second wild card slot, but I don't know that it's going to be Baltimore that takes it. It could be any one of those 5 or 6 teams.
Yeah, but with a Buck Showalter team, you expect that push. And really, what's killed them has been just a horrendous road record. They're 43-28 at home. That's 15 games over 500, while on the road 27-39. I mean, it's just it's just been a tale of two, really of two teams. On the road, they just aren't that good and aren't that consistent. And yes, like you said, we talked this much earlier in the year. That starting rotation has just been abysmal. They held on to Zach Britt, which has been a good thing. Mark Trumbo hit a walk-off single today. So, he didn't quite have the same swagger he did last year, but, it's still a piece that they have, which is a good thing. But, I think the team that surprises me the most, and it's the odd thing because we keep talking about this team, and we did so last week as well, and you and I have made slight mention here and there. I asked if you would consider this skipper, at least put him in the conversation for manager of the year. But the top 2 teams nearest the second wild card are the aforementioned Orioles, but also the Los Angeles Angels. And, I asked you, would you consider Socha as a manager of the year candidate if the Angels are able to make the playoffs? And they go out and do something that 2 things I didn't expect, which is grabbing Brandon Phillips from the Braves, which is great, but the money that they are at least willing to consider in bringing over Justin Upton from the Tigers. Now, we're looking at this, and Detroit, and this is according to Steve Adams, Detroit is paying less than $1 million of the $3.5 million left of his salary for this year, and it doesn't look like they're picking up anything for the rest of that contract. So the Angels are taking on a large chunk of cash, and they're trying to make a push for the playoffs right now. I can't believe this move, and I love the fact that they're still this gutsy trying to make a push into the postseason.
And that salary is no joke. We're talking 4 years, $88.5 million going through the rest of his contract after this year. That's not a small amount of money, especially not for an Angels team who is going to be paying Mike Trout a ridiculous sum of money. So, but the thing is, we've said it before. We've said it for 2 years now, almost, or going into our second year now, that you got to put guys around Mike Trout who can hit the ball and who can get on base. Because if you don't do that, then Mike Trout is useless to you. Mike Trout's a great hole hitter. He's perfect. He's the great number 4 guy. But if there's no one on base in front of him, Mike Trout gets no ribbies. No ribbies don't win you any games. So to get a guy like Justin Upton, who has a 362 on base, who himself has hit nearly 30 home runs this year, who himself has nearly 100 ribbies this year, who himself has scored 81 times this year. That's a big move. And it shows you that the Angels are serious about finishing out this season in a postseason slot. But you can't turn around and say that Brandon Phillips isn't a big pickup either, because that guy's hitting 291. His on base is a little low for that high of a batting average at 329, but he's hitting 291. If you can get him on the base on the bases a third of the time, Mike Trout or Justin Upton are going to bring him in.
Yeah, and he's a guy who might not snag as many bases as you were used to, but a great hit-and-run guy, still has the speed, and you put him in the middle. Now, granted, he had moved to third to go ahead and make some room for Ozzie Albies in Atlanta, but you put him at second base with Andrelton Simmons, who is widely considered one of the best shortstop prospects in the game. It puts you in a really good position going forward. The question is going to be, does the Angels pitching staff continue to do well, which I hope they do. I think it's a great story going forward. And what you have to at least tip your cap for here, when Phillips came to Atlanta, I mean, he really kind of bought all in. Okay, he and kind of embraced the team, coming from a place he'd been his whole career in Cincinnati, loved being in Atlanta, played like he was happy to be there. And Braves GM John Coppola said that, when you look at the end of the day, this is kind of a way for us to take a guy who was good to our city for a good chunk of the year, and he gets Phillips gets a $500,000 trade assign bonus. So he's getting a chance to make it into the postseason. He's also going to get $500,000 for accepting the trade. So he'll get some extra money and a chance for October. I think it's a great move by both sides, and it sets Phillips up to have maybe one chance to really sniff the playoffs.
Well, and not only that, but it's good for both teams because neither of these teams are really paying for him. Right? Sure, he's going to get the $500,000 for accepting the trade, but his $2.3 million salary is being paid mostly by the Reds at this point because the Reds dumped him to Atlanta, and they owe Atlanta that money. So he comes from Atlanta to L.A., and all of a sudden L.A. basically gets a free rental, a nearly free rental through the end of the season that might be one of the difference makers that gets them into the postseason.
Which is an absolute, just a breath of fresh air in Atlanta, who it was a team that was paying Dan Uggla an enormous amount of money when he was with Miami and with Washington to freaking beat them. I think he walked off on the Braves 2 or 3 times while still have the majority of his salary funded by Atlanta, the team he was beating. So at least, it looks like Coppola and that team in Atlanta, and that's something that Chip Carey mentioned to us when we had him on for our 1-year anniversary show, that we're starting to kind of see things go in the right spot. Guys, remember, we are part of the Grueling Truth Network at thegruelingtruth.net, and, of course, at OO Left Field on Twitter and Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. What you got, man?
At least it's not Bobby Bonilla and the Mets. I mean,
$1
they
million
could
a year,
be paying
baby.
him $1.19 million a year at the age of 53.
Waiting for that check to keep rolling in.
Bobby Bonilla has the best contract ever inked by an MLB player in the history of Major League Baseball because he hasn't played baseball in 15 years, and he still gets a cool $1 million a year after taxes.
I'm not even sure he was playing baseball when he retired. I think he was kind of he was like, all right, I got myself lined up. It's like I got a pension check plus an extra pension check. It's kind of how it's coming for him.
What it is Bobby Bonilla showed up to the ballpark for that last year of his career, and they were like, Bobby, why do you even come? You're just showing up. You're not doing anything. He goes, okay, I won't show up, but you're still going to pay me.
There you go. So from one team in L.A., or much to Chris's chagrin, at least near L.A., shouldn't be called L.A., yada, 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 to another, while the Angels are making, I don't want to say big moves. I think it kind of overstates it, but are making moves that make definite ripples, pretty large ripples, in that city. A team who we have had, I think we can still safely say, if we're not going to be prisoners of the moment, is still the best team in baseball. It's looking like a team that is lost right now. They're 2-8 in their last 10, and we're talking about the Dodgers, best team, best record in baseball. I watched some of Yu Darvish last night. I think we was up 3-1 on the Padres, and then it just kind of fell off. Things weren't going. It didn't look good. It was just kind of weird. And we're seeing we're seeing a drop. We're seeing a lull at one of the worst times you can have it. Granted, you got a whole month to bring it back up and to find yourself. Bellinger's coming back. Obviously, you have some pieces that you want back, and Seager, Scott Kazmir, you hope is going to come back in time. But it has to make you work, just a little bit concerned when the team who's second, second in that division, get 13.5 game backs, and the Diamondbacks are on a 10-game winning streak.
Yeah, we're talking about a team that was almost 20 games back 15 days ago, and they're making up ground now. Granted, it's a lot of ground. It's not the kind of ground you can make up over the course of the next month. It's not going to
Agreed.
happen.
Definitely right.
But you don't want to see the Diamondbacks in your rear view right now, especially coming into September, heading into October. The Diamondbacks are cementing themselves, now 6.5 games up in the first wild card slot, cementing themselves into the postseason. If they play against the Colorado Rockies the same way they played against them in this past series, that's a foregone conclusion that the Diamondbacks are going to be playing the Dodgers in the first round, in the divisional round of the playoffs. And in my opinion, the Dodgers do not want to see the Diamondbacks in the first round of that divisional series if they're playing the way they're playing right now, because let's not forget that the Arizona Diamondbacks have now swept 3 teams in that division, the Giants, the Rockies, and the Dodgers, in the last 9 days.
Right. And I mean, when you and I heard, actually, I think we were at dinner, the first game that Yu Darvish pitched for the Dodgers after the trade. Yeah, I think we were at the sushi restaurant, actually. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. We were.
So. And that nasty breaker he has still exists. And granted, I am not taking one game from yesterday and just having an absolute freak out moment. I'm not going to do that. That's childish. There's no point. I mean, it's a game of baseball. But if you have now, granted, the hard thing is going to be you're probably not going to be able to have Zach Greinke pitch Game 1 of the DS, assuming that that they win the wild card game. Which I think obviously it's a safe assumption right now. Say they will. Obviously, it's a 1-game playoff. Anything can happen. But what you look at there is if Greinke doesn't go, you got Corbin, you got Taijuan Walker. Robbie Ray has pitched well since coming back from his DL stint. But if the Dodgers are rested and you've got Kershaw and Darvish sitting 1-2, that's my only big worry about the idea of having to see the Diamondbacks face these guys. Yes, they're hitting very well, but Kershaw's filthy. His first game back from the DL stint, he gave up 2 hits. Not a single ball left the infield.
6 full innings, 2 hits, no earned runs. 7 Ks? Yeah, no, it was dirty. And the thing is, that's Clayton Kershaw, though. That's just Clayton Kershaw being Clayton Kershaw. That's how Clayton Kershaw plays baseball.
But so does Darvish when he's on. Darvish is just as filthy.
But if I'm the Dodgers, it's Darvish being on that I'm worried about, right? Because, yes, Yu Darvish is a fantastic pitcher, and when he's on, he's on. But when he's off, he's hittable. He's not just hittable. He gets
like last night.
Hit.
6 runs. I think 6 runs. Something to that effect. It was not a good look for him last night by any stretch.
And the last thing you need are guys like J.D. Martinez and Goldschmidt and Peralta just whacking around the field all the time. And that's what's going to happen with Yu Darvish if he's not on. They're going to hit him. Look at Yu Darvish when he's off. You know who he reminds me of? And I know this is a hard comparison probably for you to envision. But when he's off, he reminds me of present-day Matt Cain. He just throws meat, meat because he can't hook the breaking ball. He can't get the slider working, so he just throws meat after meat after meat, and he gets smacked. And
well, the tough thing is, I mean, you were seeing a lot of that breaking stuff yesterday, but it was either not breaking enough or he was just missing in location. It wasn't that he didn't trust the breaking stuff. He just couldn't find his spots.
That's what I'm saying. When it's not working, he's hanging it. That's his problem. And a hanging breaking ball is meat. That's just, I mean, that's a green light. Anytime somebody hangs a curveball to you up in the zone, bye.
Three
hitters like JD
pitched.
Martinez.
Yep, 3 innings pitched, 88 total pitches, 5 runs, all earned, 8 hits, walked 3, struck out 5.
We're talking about
a tough game
a
for him
lineup.
San Diego.
We're talking about an offensive unit that took Matt Scherzer deep in their first 3 at-bats against him.
Now, again, we're talking about the Diamondbacks here, just so everyone's talking about the Diamondbacks a couple of weeks ago. I think about a month or so ago. 1, 2, 3 went back to back to back
on Max Scherzer on the first inning. I mean, that's not something you see from Max Scherzer,
right?
And so this is not a. I mean, if this was a team, even a Rockies team, where LeMahieu and Blackmon are really and Arenado are your really big 3 sort of offensive guys. No. The Diamondbacks have 5 or 6, and it's scary to a team like the Dodgers if Yu Darvish is off. I'd be interested to see. It'll be interesting for me to see what Arizona does because I think they're going to see Darvish in this next series that they have.
Are you going to that series?
Heading in. No. This is going to be in L.A. starting tomorrow.
Oh, in L.A. Okay.
3 games in L.A. Now,
are you done for the year?
No, I got one more game. I got Padres game on next Saturday that I'm going to.
Okay.
That's my last game.
Gotcha. Okay.
But this is going to be a big series for them. If by some miracle, this is something I don't envision happening because they're going to be in LA. But if by some miracle the Diamondbacks continue their winning ways and they sweep the Dodgers in this next series in LA, you're talking about a team who could possibly sweep the Dodgers in LA and then come home and face a broken and beaten San Diego Padres team in Arizona. It's possible they might sweep 5 series because I don't see the Padres coming in here and putting a winning game together against this Diamondbacks team at this point. Now, I think the Diamondbacks are going to sweep.
I think the Padres have a little bit of confidence going in after the way they handled the Dodgers. I think they beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3. They played well. But again, I agree that at the end of the day, everything comes down to pitching. And the way that Yu Darvish is going to pitch, I think is going to be that maker. It's why they went out and got him. For the Dodgers made that move. The way he pitches will be a make or break piece because this is a season where if the Dodgers don't make it, it has to be somebody besides Clayton Kershaw's fault. To me at this point, the way that team looks, Kershaw's kind of long-term legacy really is going to end up hinging on him at least, performing as well as he did last year and being a reason why Dodgers win some games.
And that's the question. Which postseason Kershaw do we get? Do we get the typical postseason Kershaw who's going to have a bad day?
I don't think so.
Or are we going to get postseason Kershaw from last year who he came back rested in a very similar situation to this year, not quite as long on the DL, but still coming back rested in September and playing some big games? To me, last year was kind of the way that to go ahead and make a comparison for, not that you'll understand, but that you'll appreciate. To me, last year, even though it was not a World Series winning run, although they put the Dodgers they put the Cubbies as close to the brink to me as they could. They played a fantastic series. To me, the way that Kershaw pitched last year and in the way that Dave Roberts used him
very similar to a Bruce Bochy using Bumgarner, and not a way that Kershaw is normally comfortable with, that we have seen in recent seasons. It was very similar to me, to see Kershaw be consistent and be that strong, to Steve Young having his teammates rip the monkey off his back when they won that Super Bowl. Yes, it's not a World Series, but him to at least be that consistent, that strong, was a big thing, I think, that will take him forward into the postseason.
I disagree.
Really? Okay.
I do. I disagree. And here's why. Because while Kershaw put up probably one of his better showings in the postseason, it wasn't as good. It was deceptively good. It wasn't as good as you might remember it through a haze of almost 12 months now. In that series against
save that he had kind of
in the series against the Washington Nationals. In the series against the Washington Nationals, he pitched 12.1 innings, but he had a 5.84 ERA. I'm sorry, but a 5.84 ERA in the Washington Nationals series precludes him from a Madison Bumgarner 2014 style postseason. Not only that, but that losing effort, the losing effort in total against the Cubs, in which he pitched 12 innings, he posted a 3 ERA with a 1-1 record. In my opinion, that isn't reminiscent of Madison Bumgarner. So
granted, while it is better. Hold on. I'm not comparing the way Bumgarner pitched to Kershaw. I'm comparing the way that Roberts used him to the way Bochy used Kershaw. I'm not saying in any fashion
I agree with that.
Those are the same, because it's not. Bumgarner has been the Tom Brady of the postseason, and Kershaw has been the Peyton Manning. I am not comparing them two on that level. I'm just saying that the way that Kershaw was used and was effective was the way that Bochy has used pitchers in the postseason.
I agree with that, but you and I both know that I think that was a mistake. I think that he overused Kershaw, and I think that had he not used Kershaw to get that save in the divisional series, they may have gone on and won that NLCS against the Cubs, because I think Kershaw was just flat out tired in that late game against the Cubs that he lost. And that win would have been the difference for them, in my opinion. But absolutely, it's going to depend on what Clayton Kershaw can do, which Clayton Kershaw we get in the postseason. But regardless of who we get in L.A., which Clayton Kershaw we get in L.A.,
we're getting another World Series tested pitcher.
In Houston,
yes, sir,
we're going to get Justin Verlander. And this is probably the biggest news to hit in, I don't even know if anything at the deadline was really this big.
I don't remember a waiver period having moved. Now, granted, before the show, I didn't quite pay as close attention to the waiver period as I do now. I don't remember a waiver period being this monstrous. And it makes you wonder just, I would love to know who all courted Justin Verlander. And if you're an Astros fan, now granted, and I am not at all trying, and let me, before we even get into this, let us just stop right here. Give me 1 second,
I can tell you who courted him.
Hang on, give me 1 minute before we even go there. I want to say one thing, and as we mentioned, we are part of the Grueling Truth Network, and this is coming from everybody at the Grueling Truth. Everybody at Out of Left Field with the Grueling Truth sent out our deepest and most heartfelt condolences and thoughts and prayers to everybody affected by Hurricane Harvey in Houston and Louisiana and all those surrounding areas. If anybody wants to donate, obviously we've discussed, and I'm gonna mention this to Chris. If you want to donate to help, you can text the word Harvey, Harvey, to 90999 on your phone. It's an automatic donation of $10, or go to redcross.org. Battle, we've talked. Obviously, you and I are into football. Our fantasy draft is tomorrow. J.J. Watt has already won the Walter Payton of the Year award in the NFL. He set out to raise $250,000 for the city of Houston, and himself donated $100,000. Now, for everyone's, just so they're aware, we want to be clear here. We had a show recorded that happened prior to the waiver deadline, and then all hell broke loose. So this is basically show number 2. Everything of the old show plus a little bit more news. At the time, I had asked you, do you know where J.J. Watt had gotten to? And you didn't. I told you. It was about $5 million. The last number I have seen is 15. $15 million.
$15 million?
Yes, sir.
It's been a week. He's raised $15 million in a week.
And we did the show, was it
3 days
Wednesday
ago?
night? I think Wednesday night? Yeah. So it's been all of 4 days. He added $10 million to that community.
Wow.
And we know what happened with the Rangers moving that series. It's something we discussed in the past show. We don't want to get into it now because it's done and gone. The Astros took one out of that 3-game set. They came back home. They played against the Mets. They are showing that they are there for that city. I think it's a great sense of normalcy. And of everything, that city being affected, if you want to have just one moment to look beyond the devastation in front of you, and you can see a great amount of humanity in what's happening, the people that are going out there that are helping, that are there. If you're a baseball fan, you got some fantastic news in who you acquired in Justin Verlander. And, a city that is obviously reeling from this, something they're very happy to see. So I want to get back onto this topic. It's a very important topic, but at the same time, we do want to go ahead and extend our deepest thoughts and prayers to that city that was ravaged by that hurricane. So thank you, Battle for All. I know we said we wanted. I thank you for allowing me to do that. I know we both wanted to. It's been a rough go there, and obviously Florida. Now we're sitting here looking at the possibility of the same possible thing with Hurricane Irma out in the Atlantic. So my radar is quite, I'm quite attuned now to what's going to happen there. I'm certainly hoping that we don't get the same kind of hit that Houston did, and that sounds very selfish, and it is. But at the same time, we are all rallying around Houston and all the cities affected by this tragedy. So that being said, if you're listening and you're in that area and you need something to kind of pick you up, Justin Verlander is now on your pitching staff. And if you get Lance McCullers back pitching the way that he was when he was considered to be, by Chris and myself, at least a person that should be in the discussion for the Cy Young, that gives you Dallas Keuchel, Lance McCullers, and Justin freaking Verlander, a guy who has been in the World Series. Granted, yes, he lost to a team who I'm sure Chris can tell you who it was, where he was, what time it was, and what day it was when they won, and what all happened. But he's been to that, to that series.
In 4.
Yes, I get it. It was a sweep. Okay, I understand it was a sweep, and Buster Posey did a commercial. I think he was the face of one of the MLB The Show games. And made a big deal that we swept them in floor. I get it.
He was also the young
move
face
on. Just move on.
He was also the young face of baseball. But anyway,
that's not move on. For God's sakes, Christopher Furry.
That's not the point. The point is, if Justin Verlander can even be as good as he was last year, which everything that we've seen from him so far this year tells us that he's pretty darn close. We're talking a guy who's posting right now at the age of 34 with a 3.82 ERA and 172 innings pitched with 176 strikeouts. He's not going to have to go he's not going to get to where he was a year ago, but let's not forget that a year ago he posted his second best season in his career. He finished with a 3.04 ERA, not his best, but among his best, with 254 strikeouts and 227 and 2/3. If he can even get close to that at this point, which he already is pretty close to that, this is a huge, huge move for Houston. And you were talking about who courted him. I can tell you who courted him. His name is Jim Crane. You might not know that name, but that's the name of the owner of the Houston Astros, who says, and I quote, after Chris McCoskey said that the Verlander deal has been nixed because Verlander vetoed it, the information came out that Verlander, in fact, accepted the trade, and Astros owner Jim Crane said, and I quote, he was a little reluctant and eventually made the right decision.
And let's not forget, Tigers get a player to be named later in this deal, but you know what the Astros get, Chris? A cool $16 million to go ahead and help offset the cost of Justin Verlander. So for a 1-month rental, you're paying a good chunk, but for a guy who has been this good in the second half of the year, that $16 million is a big number that you need. And yes, we saw Verlander after a great outing, his last one, left with a little bit of I think it was back or shoulder tightness. Nothing to be worried about. He is slated to start Tuesday, which would be, I believe, the 5th of September. And they finally asked him, and basically, what were you thinking? What finally kind of was the spot for you where you were like, okay, I'm ready to, I'm ready to go. He said basically he was, he's like, I'm in my living room pacing back and forth. It's just Kate and I, which would be Kate Upton for any of you out there that were wondering or living under a rock. And if you don't know who she is, just Google her. Just I'll leave it at that. So basically, I'm just telling myself, do the right thing. Have the guts, do the right thing. And he has an option, and probably one of his last great opportunities to play for October. He's going to see the postseason. Something that they have not sniffed in quite a while in Detroit. Really, after 2012, it was just kind of. I mean, we expected a lot more, and then the whole Prince Fielder, Miguel Cabrera thing didn't quite work out, and it wasn't what we thought. So, yes, I absolutely love what the Astros did here. I think it stinks for them. They couldn't pull it off, sooner because, it's a reason that we would, and we had talked about this, I believe on our live show at Chase Field, the possibility that the Dodgers would hit 90 wins before the Astros hit 80, and they did. And I see you all right, Battle. You looking. You hearing something funky?
Yeah, something crazy happened. Did you hear that?
No, it's kind of quiet over here.
Oh, maybe because I'm closer to Houston than you are, and I a collective intake of breath.
Could be
the collective sigh of relief. It was a whooshing sound. I think it pushed the floodwaters back a little bit.
Sounded very similar to what we heard when we were at Chase Field with the when the Marlins got sold. But yeah, I mean, it's a bummer this didn't happen earlier for this team. Obviously, we have seen a pretty strong drop from the Astros recently. This is going to be a big shot in the arm for them. But the fact that, they stayed with it, they came down to the wire. Al Avila finally, I don't say he caved, but he found something that he wanted. He found the right thing in return. It's a great thing for both teams and the Tigers who need to rebuild or in the middle of rebuilding. And you don't want Justin Verlander making 50-something million the next couple of years, on your books when you're a team that has to start from getting those good pieces like what the White Sox are doing now and trying to make yourself relevant and 2020 to 2021, 22-ish.
Yeah, and it's going to be big for them. But there was another sound today that was a little bit closer to you that I think you may have heard. Unmistakable sound of the crack of a baseball
I
bat
thought it was
against the
I thought it
ball.
was pre-falling. Then I realized it was just a sound of ash getting just smacked against a hard thing of leather, and then it was still intact. And then I realized that Giancarlo Stanton was just rounding the bases again because he hit his 52nd home run, breaking what was a very, very long, home run list streak, if you will, of 13 at bats.
Wait. Just so everybody knows, that's the second longest streak, the second longest drought he's had this season.
There's a 20 at-bat drought from July 26th to August 4th.
Whew. Yeah.
Man.
So here's the thing.
I mean, let's be honest.
Stanton hit number 52 today.
I will go longer than 13 ABs on my freaking video game.
Here's the thing about about Giancarlo Stanton and his 52nd home run. It was also his 16th home run with a distance of more than 440 feet, and it was his third hardest hit home run at just over 115.
Doesn't he get 30 more seconds in the box?
No, 8 minutes. Yes, 8 minutes in the
box. So
box.
you're giving him like 30 seconds for every two.
Yes.
Like you're cumulatively allowing him extra time.
We're just going to let Giancarlo Stanton swing. How about that?
Well, hell, let me go back and look at the standings. You might have the Marlins
swing till
in
you're
the second
done.
wild card spot.
Just swing till you're done. Yeah, Giancarlo Stanton is not just hitting the ball hard, he is crushing down there. And unfortunately, as we've seen with other guys who crush on teams like his, the problem is that it's not really getting the Marlins anywhere. It's great to see him hitting the ball the way he is, and I would love, don't get me wrong, I would love to see him get big numbers 62. I doubt it's going to happen. I don't see 20 more, but hey, he hit nearly 20 last month, so you never know.
Player of the month in August for 18.
I would love to see him get 74 and just end that whole conversation, where it is. But at the end of the day, it's great to watch a guy mash. But the Marlins are out.
I disagree. I don't think you enjoy it. Well, you enjoy it from afar because if you were enjoying it in Miami, you got to think that many home runs, at least half have probably come at home, which means that you would have to watch that godforsaken statue light up and move every time he hit a dinger in Marlins Park. I just want to go ahead and lay that out there for you.
You poor, poor people down there in Florida. I don't understand why you stay in a state that calls that art. That doesn't make any sense to me.
They're down south.
Kind of. Just out of curiosity, and I know this is completely off the subject of Giancarlo Stanton, but do you have a ball strike counter in your hand?
No, actually, it's a cable stripper from work. I had an extra one at the old house where we moved, so I've been kind of just flipping it around. Yeah, no.
I see.
Those are – but by the way, thank you. It's an indicator, not a clicker, so thank you for at least getting that terminology right there. I appreciate it. But yes, Stanton's 52 dingers are the most since Chris Davis in 13, who had 53 to end the year, and the most by an NL player since Ryan Howard had in 06. And now we know a guy and he had 58 in 06. So Stanton is on pace for 62. And I want to ask you this question, and I know that you got to go soon, so I know we can't get this, but I want to tease this. I want to know, and we're going to go here next week because we have a couple things we promised you, including Chris's reaction to the World Umpires Association boycott and the issues that the MLB is having with umpires. And we're going to get to that next week when we have a little bit more time and Chris has the time to really delve into what was happening there. But I want to know for you, Chris, if Stanton ends the season with 62 or above, will that mean more to you now than what it meant to watch Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa go at that record in the late 90s? Don't answer it now. I want you to think about it. I want to see what happens. But that is going to be...
I just want to make sure I have the question correct. Will it mean more to me now than that does to me now, or will it mean more to me now than that did to me then?
Yeah, more now, seeing it happen now than what that did then. Obviously, I know that a little bit of bias is going to take place because of what happened. And obviously, I think that's an
easy question to answer. Absolutely not. Nothing was more fun than watching Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire race for 62.
But now seeing
hindsight being 2020,
right?
It's a more important number to me now. But no, that race meant a lot. It saved baseball in reality.
Okay.
But
so again,
I have a question.
Forward to seeing, but yeah, 52 and the pace he's on is just beautiful.
I have a question. I just want to know, just for my own personal knowledge, what you think. Do you think that the ball that Giancarlo Stanton hit today got out of the field faster than Miguel Cabrera did when he got dumped for punching Austin Romine in the face?
Yes, because Miguel Cabrera and Austin Romine were rolling around for a good 3 or 4 minutes. That was a brawl.
So you're saying they had a little hang time?
My God, I don't remember a fight that good since the one in St. Louis where everyone was pushed up against the back screen. You're having guys who were basically, the screen is the only thing keeping them from falling into the. That was a fight, and to be fair, but, yes, both sides were wrong, and there is no doubt both sides were wrong in this. I get you want to make an example of Cabrera because he went ahead and put his hands on Rowan and shoved him. But when a guy comes out of the dugout and Gary Sanchez and sucker punches Cabrera twice, and Aaron Judge got some blows in there as well, Sanchez got 4 games, Romine got 2 games. Both of those have still yet to be resolved, which is another thing that we'll deal with later. Just happened on August 24th. Folks, we're a week and a half past this fight, and we still don't have an answer on what's going to happen on the appeal with Sanchez and Romine. At the end of the day, 7 people got dumped. It was a cluster for Carlos Torres and that entire crew. But, Alex Wilson, and here's my thing here. Alex Wilson had his suspension reduced by 1 game, even though he said, yeah, I threw in there on purpose. And it goes back to the discussion we've had of using baseballs as weapons to hit guys on purpose, because Dylan Betances, whether or not it was purposeful or not, whether or not he lost control or not, if his intent from the outside of receiving the ball for that pitch was to hit, I think it was James McCann, was to make contact with James McCann's body, and then he loses control of that pitch and hits him in the head, right there, therein lies the problem with using baseballs as weapons. Because your intent was to hit the guy, you lost your handle on the ball, and you made contact with his freaking head. And that pisses me off.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like – we've discussed almost ad nauseum on this show about throwing at guys on purpose and how much we dislike this whole mindset that it's okay to throw at a guy on purpose because you're upset at him. But the amount of damage that you can do to somebody with a baseball, and especially if you hit somebody in the head, even with that helmet on. Look at Brandon Belt. Brandon Belt's still sidelined with a concussion now, almost 3 weeks after getting hit in the head.
Yeah. And let's call a spade a spade. The helmets that you're going to see in minor league baseball have thicker padding than the ones that you're going to see in Major League Baseball. They're smaller, they're lower profile, or thinner. Yes, guys are wearing that, that jaw and cheekbone protector. But when it comes down to it, the ones that you're seeing in the minors have probably an inch of padding compared to what you're going to see with the guys in the bigs.
Yeah, which is crazy to me. I don't understand why they wouldn't opt for the safer helmet in the majors. You're talking about guys who are making millions of dollars, and they opt for the thinner, more lightweight, which I understand. Guys don't want to wear a bulky helmet, but you would think that you don't want a guy who's making $25 million to take a shot in the head and be down for 6 weeks either. In my opinion, you're never going to get people to just turn and take the safe route because it's the safe route. You have to make it make sense to them. This is the same thing you're seeing in football right now. Football players are still pushing back against the safer and safer helmets that they're making. You know, the air-filled helmets, the more heavily padded helmets because they're bulkier, they're a little less comfortable, whatever. You're getting pushback from these guys, but in the end, you're talking about guys who are making millions of dollars who are putting their heads at risk. And if you're just going to throw at a guy's head on purpose, in my opinion, 2 games isn't enough. If you're a pitcher, they should rate games, suspension games, in starts. That's what I think. I think suspension games should be in starts or appearances. It's great if you're a reliever and you can come in 3 out of 5 games, but as a starter,
and that's the hard thing there when you're a starter, and 5 starts is an entire month of the year. But I in that case, and again, we don't want to beat it. This is a horse that we've gone on, and we will again, I'm sure. But the hard thing here is, you want the suspensions to be equal. Bryce Harper being out for 3 games was vastly different than Hunter Strickland, and I don't recall the suspension numbers, but my point is that 3 games for Strickland compared to 3 games for Harper, vastly different. If you're Bruce Bochy and you've got Bumgarner, Cueto, and Samardzija going, and they have very good games and go deep into the game all 3 times, then the use of Strickland is a moot point. But if you're the Nationals, having Harper in your lineup is huge. So, yes, I agree with you completely. This entire thing was just it was screwed up from the get-go. There was obviously issues there that probably stemmed from the previous series. One of those times where neither, the teams were not warned at the beginning of the game. You mentioned that both Brad Ausmus and Joe Girardi were were 2 of the 7 ejections for arguing. Girardi came out after, I don't recall who the first pitcher that was ejected was, but basically said that, hey, told Carlos Torres, who was a new hire
Alex
umpire.
Wilson.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Who said, basically that told Carlos Torres, who's a new hire umpire, which I am not saying he handled this wrong. But this is what Girardi's point was: is, hey, had you gone ahead and warned whoever it was in the earlier part of the game when the first guy was hit, the retaliation wouldn't have happened. But you want to go ahead and allow this to happen, and one of my guys throws in and hits, whomever it, hits, I think Martinez, whatever it was, or, it's like, now you want to throw him out with no warning? Now, I do want to say this just to end this conversation, because there's plenty more we can get into, and I'm sure we will at some point. James McCann did come back in that game and hit a 3-run dinger.
Yes, he did. I mean, at the end of the day, this is really just another in a series of setbacks for the New York Yankees, and they've been really sort of feeling that setback after setback after setback recently. And the most recent, I think, other than this fight, is the seriously lackluster performance of Aaron Judge in the second half. It's just been really hard for this team to get going in the second half. And the problem with that is that when you can't get your team going and then you get in a fight like this. Right. So, and he did come back. He did crush a dinger. They did end up losing that game, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think they lost 9-6. I think the hard part here is this is an idea of your manager goes out and gets dumped to try and pump you up. The idea that having a brawl like this gets you, you get hacked off, but you kind of rally behind each other. I don't think that was the intent going in, but it does kind of, it certainly makes things different.
I just want to throw another funny sort of stat about this fight. Three Yankees coaches were dumped during this fight.
So I want to ask you a question.
First, Girardi.
Okay.
Then the bench coach, Rob Thompson, who came out
over
to back up Dylan Betances. And then
keep in mind, once warnings are issued and Betances was dumped, whoever is the acting manager goes as well. So that's the hard thing you get here. You have multiple guys who are getting dumped for intentionally throwing at others, so you're losing another acting manager along with each one. But I want to ask you one thing. Do you think that in that fight there were more landed punches than there were in the Mayweather-McGregor fight?
I think there were more landed punches than there were in the Mayweather-McGregor fight up until about the 6th round.
Okay, fair enough. I'm good with
when
that.
When Mayweather turned it on, then there was a bunch of landed punches. But
hey, I want to clarify something from earlier. I know that we're running short on time. You asked if I had heard something, and I think at first you thought it was a sigh of relief. But see, I've heard similar sounds when you see like Superman flying over, and I seem to recall that a guy who looked very similar to the Man of Steel north of the border kind of did the same damn thing again.
Yes, and to wrap up the show, Kevin Pillar is going to pick up the Defender of the Week honors here for that insane horizontal catch in center field with absolutely zero inclination to protect himself. He dove headfirst at the wall. Yes.
Now, again, we are a show that believes in transparency, correct?
We are.
I want to applaud you for, in this broadcast, getting the difference in horizontal and vertical correct. Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. You know what it actually took? I actually gave my history students a test last week in which I asked them what is latitude and what is longitude on a map. And I put the horizontal and vertical lines, and 17 students in one class mixed the two up, and so I had to go over it. So now I have a firm grasp on the difference between horizontal and vertical.
So what you're saying is you have 17 perfect candidates to be butter bar lieutenants in the U.S. Army. Congratulations, Chris. Great job.
Just in
Make
one
sure to
class.
salute when you walk out the door.
Just in one class. Yeah, no, I mean, Kevin Pillar's catch, not the first catch this year that he's had that was incredible, but just another in a long list of incredible catches that he's made out there in center field. And for him to do it with absolutely no regard for his own safety, I mean, he jumped with, 3-4 feet before the warning track and ended up with his head tucked under the wall. Easily traveled 10 or 15 feet through the air horizontally to make that grab. It was just fantastic. It was phenomenal.
It was one of the best catches I've seen. He is fantastic. He's a guy who, if not this year, is going to win a Gold Glove very, very soon. Man, great show. A ton of stuff. Again, if you want to donate to help out those in Houston, please text the word Harvey, Harvey, to the number 90999, or visit redcross.org. Man, enjoy your show. You and I are going to have hopefully I'll be around for the draft tomorrow. If not, hey, you know what? End of the day, I'm going to be honest, the whole auto thing didn't kill me.
Well, I'm hoping you're going to make it. It's not until 6:00 your time, so hopefully you'll be home for that.
Well, if anything, I'll be waiting for something to download and have the phone on, but I will do my best. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry it's been some time getting you some shows. Things are starting to get back to normal. I have moved. I'm in a new house. Everything is back to normal. Thank you, AT&T, for finally getting the internet going for 2 weeks. Much appreciated. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Stick with us. Check out thegruelingtruth.net for all your football needs. fantasy football stuff, all the goods. Football is back. College football week 1 is done. NFL season 1 just around the corner. What?
Oh, I'm sorry. My fantasy draft has started, and the first 2 people in the fantasy draft have taken quarterbacks in the first round. I'm not sure what they're doing,
Chris is
but
ready
I
to
feel
win.
much better about this league.
Chris is ready to win fantasy. This is your third? I think this is your third one. Yes, because you had a draft yesterday at B-Dubs. But anyway, guys, thanks for sticking with us. We had a ton of fun. Hope you all did too. For everybody at the Growing Truth Network, for Chris Furry, I'm Graham McGowan. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll see you next week back on Out of Left Field.